The Chinese have now developed a weapon that will likely bring the entire Western world to its knees. What you're looking at might be the single most ingenious piece of military technology ever developed. It's a missile that can fly at the altitude of an airliner, Mach 2.5. They can then dive and skim the waves below radar before finally diving below the waves and supercavitate at over 200 knots for the final few miles to its target. But all of that is not the ingenious part. The ingenious part is the fuel that it uses. It's a fuel that's necessary for agriculture around the world, meaning you could never sanction it. You could never stop the free flow of it. It's a chemical called boron. It's actually an element. This missile has been able to use boron as its primary source of fuel. And there's no way the U.S. can stop the free flow of boron around the world without starving the entire world. Boron is essential for the growth of all plant life. You could never restrict it. You can't even find enough of it truly. The primary sources are a mine in Nevada. The Turks have some. The Argentinians. The Peruvians. But the Chinese have a lot of it. It's a weapon that is perfectly engineered. And this is all very recent. 13 September 2022. Boron-powered Chinese missile will work in the air and underwater. Now, this article would have you believe that the U.S. could stop the Chinese from developing this simply because we control so much boron. But there's a lot of boron out there, other places than the United States, Turkey being one of those places. You don't need very many of them. And it's the range of the weapon that you need to pay attention to. That's the key. They tell you everything you need to know right here in the article. Boron is a highly reactive light element that reacts equally well with water as it does with air to release vast amounts of heat. The U.S. Air Force experimented with boron in the 1950s to increase the power of its supersonic bombers. However, the project was shelved since ignited boron is hard to control and also forms a layer of debris that impacts rocket performance. However, the race for hypersonic weapons, missiles that can travel at speeds greater than Mach 5, has reignited the interest in boron as a fuel. China has experimented with solid fuel that contains boron nanoparticles for its air-breathing scramjet engines. Even the U.S. Navy has successfully experimented with boron nitride nanotubes in its hypersonic weapons. As per the publication, this missile is 5 meters, 16 feet 4 inches tall, can cruise at Mach 2.5 when at an altitude of 32,000 feet. After traveling for a distance of 124 miles, this is where you need to pay attention, 200 kilometers, the missile will dive and skim over the waves for up to 12 miles, getting below radar, 20 kilometers. Once the target is within a range of 6 miles, 10 kilometers, the missile will go into torpedo mode and travel underwater at the speed of 200 knots, 100 meters per second. 100 meters per second underwater, thanks to its ability of supercavitation, making a giant air bubble around it in the water, which reduces drag and does not slow down the rocket. The researchers also claim that the missile will be capable of changing its course or crash diving up to 330 feet in order to evade underwater defenses and not lose momentum. Now, here are the numbers. 124 miles at airliner altitude drops down to wave height, and then another 12 miles, so that's 136, and then dips below the waves for another 6 miles. So 142 miles grand total. 142 miles grand total. That's the distance from the mainland of China to Taiwan. It's just that simple. 142 miles. Boron, April 21, 2022. The overlooked critical material. There are so many uses for this particular material, the U.S. would never be able to control it or sanction it without causing massive harm around the globe. They're looking for it everywhere. The best place to start with the boron market is with its simplest application, which is fertilizer. Tons of different fertilizer formulas, some of which are boron rich, many of which aren't. Most often, fertilizers are associated with the big three of plant elements: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. However, boron is one of the elements that may be commonly overlooked, and boron deficiencies can lead to plant death. Boron deficiencies also contribute to lower plant uptake of the big three elements, meaning boron-infused fertilizers improve efficiency and allow planters to use less. And this is right from Michigan State. I'll give you this article. This is from Seeking Alpha. Ceramics and glass. Electrical insulators. Solar panels. Neodymium magnets. Electric cars, EVs, electric vehicles. All of these require boron, the fuel used for this missile. This is what makes it absolutely ingenious. The U.S. cannot interfere. Western nations cannot interfere without causing all sorts of problems, especially to the green movement. Turkey just disclosed the second largest reserve of rare earth, but its value is still up in the air. Forget rare earths, boron is the critical mineral to track. This is 15 September 2022. Here are your top countries: Turkey, Russia, U.S., Peru, Argentina, China, Bolivia, Chile. Where it's found. Turkey. Pay attention. Turkey seeks to be first NATO member to join China-led SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The Shanghai Five Group was created on 26 April 1996 with the signing of the Treaty on Deepening Military Trust in Border Regions. That's what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is. It's a military arm of the Chinese. And you can read up on boron and what its uses are, and it's real simple. And the U.S. is terrified of this. So much so that Lockheed Martin had to step up the power of its laser that it delivered to the military recently. Pardon me. Lockheed Martin breaks own record, delivers 300 kilowatt laser weapon to U.S. military. You see, they can't stop the Chinese from developing the weapon. They just got to find a way to shoot it down. The 300 kilowatt class laser can engage targets at more extended stand-off ranges and to kill them quicker. Now, prior to this, they only had 50 kilowatt lasers that had a range of about 100 and I believe 40 kilometers is what they said. Somewhere in here, I'll give you this article too. So they needed to go 5 times. 5 times this. So, anyway, this is the stuff that probably needs to be paid attention to. Not a lot we can do about it, to be very truthful. But people have been asking for different content. They don't like content that directly applies to them and things they could actually do in their lives to change things. They really like to hear about stuff like this that's kind of futuristic and sci-fi and somewhat, I'm not sure what the term would be, when you can't do anything about something. Sometimes that gives people solace. I'm sure there's a term for it. Hopelessness? But it is, for lack of any other term, ingenious. When you can develop a rocket fuel that is required for plant growth around the world, that's pretty ingenious and a great way to avoid the West. So I will leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.